folks, we busted our asses helping these little anchor baby mammies and bedwenches bring their little asses over here. We fighting y'all about reparations we ain't even got.
There are some Black Americans who don't consider me Black.
They passionately insist that they are not Africans. Some of them will say, actually, we are the indigenous people of the Americas.
Everyone hates Nigerians. I don't know why. Call us demons. We're evil.
Anchor baby mammies and bedwenches.
This was the day that changed my life forever. I always wondered if there would be a sign that today would be different. But it was like any other day.
Every day, same shit. Wake up, work for white people, get paycheck, carry ass home.
Till I go on Twitter. That was my first mistake. And I checked my mentions.
Listen here, my UV ray resistant folk, them.
You getting a front row seat to Black people business. Brought to you by Black on Black Crime. The Diaspora War Peace Treaty has been violated, nullified by one single tweet. A tweet from an account by the name of Henrietta Snocks. Not to be confused with Henrietta Locks. And since Miss Locks decided to delete her tweet, we have the lovely Andrewism to reenact it for us.
What have you tethers ever done for Black Americans?
By the way, tether is a pejorative for a Black immigrant immigrating to the States. Carry on.
Those Africans, those Negroes, those Nilotics, those Saharans, those Congolese.
Now, naive little me thought that this person was just ignorant to my intersections. Maybe they took offense to this Black Caribbean man speaking to a Black American experience. So I informed Miss Snocks that I was born in the States and lived in the States for 10 whole years, attending college in Iowa at that. What a majority of diversity I saw was the diverse assortment of cheeses, to which she quote tweeted my tweet. And hundreds of accounts descended upon my good faith tweet. They must call me everything but a child of God, claiming that I don't know the Black American experience even though I lived there for 10 years. Sometimes I'm exotified for my Caribbeanness. This time, I'm being maligned. Have you more so been exotified due to your Jamaican heritage?
Yeah, I'll tell you straight up. Back when I used to date men, that was one of my...
Sorry, I don't want to kill me. Just like, listen, I'll never go back fucking there. Like I said, that was... Ooh.
You know, back when I was in the sunken place, I was young. My frontal lobe wasn't fully developed yet. I didn't know any better. I exotified myself, and I knew exactly what I was doing. It was always a stay bomba clock for me. And honestly, I was with it because that was the only thing that proved to me that they cared about my culture.
Now my big and be them woman, them and man, them, you all know your boy foreign, right? You know it's two places I don't go, and that's back and forth. So I gone about my day, and I come back to an epistle in my mentions. Lord, listen, your sons, daughters, and NBs are using the gifts that you've given them to write dissertations and theses about why Black, Caribbean, and African people are parasites on Black American culture. My God, these Black Americans, not all Black Americans. I gotta put that disclaimer in there because you got some people that come up inside the comments and be like, hey now, not me. I wasn't inside your Twitter mentions. I'm talking about these Black Americans. They saying that all we do, us Black, Caribbean, and African people, all we do is we come to their country now. Not like they ain't being marginalized inside their own country, but we ain't gonna talk about that right now. We come to their country and we take advantage of the civil rights marches and things that they do and the Black media and culture that they've made. And that instead of thanking them and groveling to them and genuflecting to them, we instead condescend to them and look down on them. And it was at that moment that I began to wonder, what in the bumper Ross cloth is this? Where am I? But it all became clear once I took a gander into Miss Snocks' profile. And there it was in the bio, as clear as Queen Elizabeth's skin before she died. An American flag. And you know, when you on Black Twitter, and you see an American flag inside the bio, you know what's going on.
Anytime you see a Black American with an American flag in their bio or in their header, just know something real wrong, all right?
I tangentially touched upon this movement in this video. But it seems like the time has finally come. Because first they attack my good uncle.
It started popping up with that Tariq Nasheed video early on.
Buck breaking, yeah.
And so I was like, all right, what? Why do y'all think I'm Jamaican? Why do y'all keep saying that? Why do y'all keep saying I'm an immigrant? Like that's silly. I say in the video I'm from Chicago. You know?
They left me with no choice but to choose violence. I furiously pulverized these keys and created paragraphs that paralyzed me. And the reason being that it was missing a secret ingredient. The source that separates these videos from monospheric mediocrity. And that is empathy. With a dash of nuance. I was just gonna make one video about how this Black American movement is a pillar of anti-blackness. How it maligns the marginalized that look just like them. And don't get me wrong now, I still get dismantled. They're ludicrous assertions. But you know what will be better? If I actually help them build up their arguments against black immigrants like myself. But before that, I want to get real with you. While these last few videos were some of my best work, behind the scenes, I haven't been okay. In fact, I've been going through the roughest period of my life. And I did what I always do in times like these. And I turned it into a story. One of my most ambitious and emotional stories that I don't want to spoil for you because it actually is the premise of my entire storytelling class. Actually, a story kicks off every lesson in this storytelling class, which is now live on Nebula. Nebula has made my dream of fighting for the most marginalized minorities a reality. I made like $300 off YouTube AdSense last month because the type of things that we talk about, the type of things that matter, are also things that advertisers deem to be risky. If I relied on YouTube alone, I wouldn't be able to bring you the type of content that I bring you because I wouldn't be able to sustain myself. Nebula is empowering me and hundreds of other creators that you watch to make content uncompromised. You get ad-free episodes and bonus exclusives on Nebula. But most of all, you get to directly impact the future of our content by being able to support us directly. And the best way to get access to Nebula is through the smartest bundle in streaming, Curiosity Stream and Nebula. Curiosity Stream got thousands of amazing documentaries, like this one I've been binging on ancient history, presented by John Green. You know the Green brothers?
Mr. Green, is this going to be on the test? Yeah, about the test. The test will measure whether you are an informed, engaged, and productive citizen of the world, and it will take place in schools and bars and hospitals and dorm rooms and in places of worship.
$14.79 a year. That's less than a Chipotle bowl. You could support your favorite independent creators and support your mind at the same damn time. Click the link in the description to get access to the smartest bundle in streaming. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, ADOS refers to American descendants of slavery. Make sure you get it right now, because Wumbai demanded that I take down the video where I got it wrong and make an apology video for it. ADOS was born from a hashtag used by Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. Their mission is to demand reparations for the atrocities of slavery in the United States. Regardless of your reparation hot takes, as I have many, this sounds like an intrepid mission statement. Would you agree? So why would I have beef with them? Or maybe the next way around. They also advocate for focus on ADOS when it comes to affirmative action policies. This is due to the claim that these policies have ostensibly benefited other marginalized groups outside of ADOS. As you can imagine, this has led to many contentions, not only with the black diaspora, but just human beings at large. Like, the 2019 campaign that ADOS started against Kamala Harris, claiming that she's not black, she's just Jamaican. And of all the things to dislike Kamala for, her bloodline beginning in Jamaica due to the slave ship stopping there instead of the States, it's a bit tacky to take her to task over. But T Noir, a Jamaican American, knows this thing far too well.
There are some Black Americans who don't consider me Black. They consider me Jamaican. So for me to care about issues that are affecting Black Americans, to talk about it and have the strong opinions that I'm known to have, it was like wait, you can do that too? That's not making sense. And that always bugged me.
This is a prime example of gatekeeping blackness. And I'd be remiss not to mention that the face of blackness across the world is Black America. To Black American media, to the civil rights movement, to athletics. Everything that the Black American has accomplished is extremely impressive to me, given that it is in spite of every form of oppression that austere white supremacy has thrown against it. But one could argue, though, that ADOS took the American part of Black American a little too far.
Hey, you want me to get in trouble? It's always a red flag when someone's taking a bit too much pride in being American And this goes for anything, right? Like, if you take too much pride in being British, you take too much pride in being American. It's all the same.
Nationalism.
If the patriotism in like certain superpowers is a bit too much, I'm like, okay, you're raising red flags. So making me ask questions.
It's that very American privilege that allows ADOS to make these assertions and positions in the first place. And the very privilege that empowers an ADOS to think that they are so far removed from their African heritage that they have transcended it. They are American and only American.
They passionately insist that they are not Africans. Some of them will say, actually, we are the indigenous people of the Americas. Let me not mix it up, because some of them don't like it when we confuse them, right? The ADOS people will not say that they are indigenous, at least not most of them. The FBA people, the foundational Black Americans, are the ones that will say, oh, we the real indigenous people, we the real Native Americans kind of thing. It's part of that whole milieu of Black people who want to be everything except Africa. So that even if we do come from Africa, that at this point that they're they're so distinct now, so far removed that they have no connection.
And let me take a beat to execrate the nativism claim that they made to America.
I don't like how we're negating indigenous people of America. True African Americans are the only Native Americans. We gotta fact check that.
So let's talk about FBA. The Foundational Black Americans. Founded by Tariq Nasheed. Foundational Black Americans is an offshoot of ADOS. Nasheed and Cornell had differences as it pertains to the direction of the ADOS movement. So Nasheed decided to start his own movement, which I can only describe as ADOS, but fermented in a cellar for 10 years.
Right? And I didn't even get into FBA, because FBA is just founded by a grifter. Tariq Nasheed is the one who started FBA. He was pushing ADOS, right? He's part of the reason ADOS was pushed to certain prominence. He and Yvette and they fell out, right? They fell out. So he went to start his own movement called Foundational Black Americans, because he must be in everything, right? He must grift.
Both movements, mind you, are definitely fringe groups. Very loud minorities. In fact, I think they have membership in the low thousands, but I've seen their presence mostly on Black Twitter. The ADOS and FBA accounts seem to have a theme in the way that their profiles are set up. They normally sport an American flag emoji. They normally have ADOS or FBA, if not in the name itself, then the bio at least. And that's it. You know, nothing else to suggest that these people have any personality outside of FBA or ADOS. Which begs me to believe that...
I know it's the Russians. Like...
I've been saying that. Them are just bots. And they use those bots to amplify their presence on social media. Vast majority of them, the ones who like all their posts or whatever, they have the exact same format to their Twitter bios, to their Twitter usernames, to their names, to the display names, to their profile pictures.
And bots or not, they did a lot of damage in 2016, where a Harvard study concluded that the accounts that use the ADOS hashtag strategically use breaking news events to discourage Black voters from voting for the Democratic Party. Now, whether the Dems them actually act in favor of Black Americans is up for debate. But what is definitely not in the interest of Black Americans is the deafening silence that these very accounts had when the Rona scourged Black communities. Oh, and they really got an issue with West Africa.
Everyone hates Nigerians. I don't know why. They call us demons. We're evil. Okay, so the short answer is Afrophobia, right? Caribbean culture's become so deeply ingrained into certain areas, those Black communities. What ended up happening here, the Black Africans came here, and it was like, look at these goofy Black Africans. The Black Caribbeans were always seen as like the cooler older brother. I knew people that like Ghanaian or they were Nigerian, and they would lie at motives and be like, yeah, you know, I'm Jamaican, I'm Caribbean. And they'd be like, no, and that's wild, that's crazy. But that's to give you a sense.
That's crazy
how,
because like Jamaicans come from Accra and Ghana.
We talk about anti-Blackness a lot on this channel. And I think the pinnacle of anti-Blackness is Afrophobia. When you look at the way that Africans are stereotyped and stigmatized to seem primal, hyperbolizing the poverty, and conveniently omitting the reason why West Africa is impoverished in the first place. It really humbled me to hear a storyteller tell me that African Britons were role-playing as Caribbean. Because here I is harping about my malignment when I ought to discuss the benefits of exoticism.
I think there's a measure of exoticism that in some ways in some crowds might shield some Africans and some Caribbeans of you know what I'm saying, some a lot of some of the more pervasive elements of like anti-blackness in the US. A lot of them have noted that they've been treated differently because they are Caribbean person, because they're African person, either negatively or positively.
One of the silliest things about this whole argument is that it totally negates and refuses to acknowledge the possibility of multiple identities. It reinforces the colonial binary and forces you to pick one.
First of all, people don't understand that you can have multiple identities and be a part of multiple different cultures and many different experiences. People love to stick to binaries, but they also like you to just pick one, right? Pick one activism. I don't think people understand that while racism in America is arguably the worst, that it also exists elsewhere. Mm-hmm. They also don't understand that even if you are not from America, once you come to America and you are perceived as the same black like everybody else, you're treated the same.
But ADOS and FBA don't recognize multiculturalism. And if that's not damning enough, then the overtly conservative tones of FBA and ADOS ought be superfluous. This thumbnail wasn't clickbait, you know. The ADOS founder has literally been caught in maggot regalia.
So I'm trying to say is there's actually a direct financial tie, right? So the same Yvette Connell who was talking about Make America Great Again, denying being xenophobic and whatever, she at one point defended the term blood and soil, a slogan used by Nazis, as we all know. Connell previously served as a board member of the anti-immigration group Progressives for Immigration Reform, which is tied to right-wing groups funded by nativist financier John Tanton. John Tanton, you go on his Wikipedia page, it's in the first line. John Hamilton Tanton, American ophthalmologist, white nationalist, and anti-immigration activist. But ADOS is about helping African Americans, right? It's about supporting the lineage.
Both movements have got scathing reception. The outline opined that ADOS has managed to synthesize the black left-wing critique of America's origins with a right-wing belief in the inherent superiority of those who were born in America. The co-chairman of Afro-American Studies at Howard called ADOS a weaponized movement that has become indefensibly xenophobic and nativist. And Malcolm Nance, friend of the channel, described supporters as trolls, calling them a mix of African-American pro-Trump racists and nuts. It ought to be apparent that ADOS and FBA are compromised. Maybe it started out with a pure mission of trying to center African-American interests. But it's hard to argue that the intention now of these movements isn't to uphold white patriotism.
It very much resembles white patriotism in that it's like, we were here first and this is our America. And it's like, do you realize how similar you sound to the people you're trying to run from, the people whose power you're trying to take? It's almost like you want to swap yourself out for their power, which we know will not ever work.
Listen here, white supremacy and anti-blackness are so pervasive that anyone could fall for it. The journey of decolonizing your mind is ever enduring. But I've always found it interesting, the battles that we choose. Because instead of the diaspora banding together to fight the common enemy of white supremacy,
we do know that there are disproportionate amounts of black immigrants in certain higher institutions, especially PWIs, your Ivy League. You know, that's a running joke from what I understand in the Ivy League. That's not their fault explicitly. That is the system of white supremacy. So like what kills me is how certain people throw all the hands in the world, got all the smoke in the world for 19-year-old, sophomores from Kenya at Harvard, and no smoke for Harvard, the institution itself.
The contention of reparations seemed to be the main mission of both of these movements, which is hilarious when you hear who they want to hold accountable for reparations.
ADOS, they just have the people who say, oh yeah, we were sold by Africans. We were sold by Africans. And so they must pay us reparations for selling us into slavery.
The Africans gotta pay them?
Yes. So they turn the entire African continent into this one homogenous blob of people who just viciously sold them into slavery. One piece of thing that they will use to argue that is they'll say, oh, well, Benin apologized for their role in the transatlantic slave trade. And to see, Benin is apologizing, so all of Africa must pay reparation.
The whole thing.
And therefore, they should not be able to access the reparations once that discourse is had. And
Which is so fucking stupid. Yo, think about how dumb that is. That we fighting y'all about reparations. We ain't even at the table. We have whole movements solidifying who gets this imaginary thing we gon' get.
The seat at the table. Once
we get it, just
y'all
understand, y'all niggas can't have none.
Then there's the ironic xenophobia, which is extremely palpable given that this is America. The credo of the country is that it is built on an idea, a philosophy, not a homogenous population.
Are we not forgetting that America is built on immigrants in general? Like, America is what it is because of immigrants. Black immigrants have also made America what it is. And to think that you have to have some sort of oppression rite of passage to deserve celebration and protection in America is weird. Weird as fuck.
And it's so weird to hear people argue about their lineage and exclude the rest of the black diaspora when they themselves should be able to trace their family ties right back to one place in West Africa or in the Caribbean.
A lot of these motherfuckers in New York are descendants of like Caribbean immigrants. Like, it's niggas in New York, like Tariq Nasheed himself is probably 2 generations away from being from the Caribbean.
Or the fact that Malcolm X right there, people from Grenada. You know,
all these people, Marcus Garvey. We gonna act like Biggie wasn't 2nd generation Jamaican.
Or Boogie Down Productions.
Or KRS-One. Like, half these motherfuckers' parents were Jamaican.
Their arguments are as rickety as they are bigoty, which is unfortunate because there are some warranted grievances towards black immigrants to the States on behalf of black Americans.
You know, there are elements to what they're saying that I do sympathize with. I do understand some of the sentiments of like wanting to protect your culture.
I've discussed my transgressions towards African Americans across a litany of videos. Notwithstanding the internalized white supremacy and anti-blackness of black nations like the Bahamas. But having lived in the United States for 10 years, I could tell you that type of white supremacy is hit different.
And I think about conversations we've had about like the difference between growing up next to your colonizers, right?
Growing up, my parents inculcated me that America is the place of bountiful opportunity. They say that if you can make it there, you have no excuse but yourself to succeed. So when I came to the States and I saw that people that look just like me ain't thriving, I attributed that to them instead of the system. In a way, I myself upheld, bolstered the American dream and packaged it to my friends and family through my success in the States, which encouraged more Caribbean people to immigrate to the States in hopes of pursuing that American dream. Because we hear the success stories. The Caribbean valedictorian that went to a school in Florida and your Facebook feed full up of him. You'd have everybody in the country retweeting that, reposting that, because they proud of him. To see one of their own go over to the States in the big stage and succeed. And then your parents could send that to you and say, that's why you need to go to the States, so that you could succeed like that. And when you get to the States and you realize it ain't all milk and honey, you think you could tell your friends and family that? No, because it can make you look like a failure. They ain't gonna see that you are fighting a system that is designed to oppress you. And people that look like you, they can say it's you.
They had these trainees who would go to the States and they would send back their barrels and stuff, and they would pretend everything hunky-dory, everything, they real starring, they real succeeded. But in reality,
and
they sleeping on somebody's couch. They're sleeping in some cave in New York, and they cleaning some white person's house. They sweep in some streets just to make a little money, but they will give the facade of success because of ego or pride or whatever. And they wouldn't want to come back because then there'll be like a certain measure of pride to sacrifice their pride. You hear the success stories and they will talk about the success stories, but there's a lot more failures.
Exactly.
A lot more failures.
And this black diasporic pipeline to the States has been lubricated by lies. And these Caribbean migrants are so resistant to them being assimilated into American culture that they will cling on to their little accent for as long as they can. That's why you could always tell a yardie regardless of where you are. Because almost every Caribbean immigrant has heard that you ain't black, you Jamaican, you Bahamian, you Bayesian.
In Jamaica, they specifically were taught that you're not black, you're Jamaican. Almost to insinuate, the same thing, that black is a pejorative and it's of Americans, right? You're Jamaican before you are black. Black is just the race, but not who you are.
Black Americans don't have the luxury to call anything else their culture because their culture has been forged in the context of colonialism and oppression. Not to say that African and Caribbean countries haven't experienced slavery, but the degree of cultural erasure, subjugation, and pain that Black Americans have endured, it would be unconscionable to ignore it.
I think Black Americans have had so much taken from them that I find it's really hard to fault any of them for being we need to protect this. Yeah. We need to be careful. I understand the heightened sensitivity of it. And it's why I try to be very careful when I'm navigating it.
It's important to acknowledge foreign privilege. The fact that the type of Black immigrant that is able to immigrate to the United States is typically more money than your average African American. Notwithstanding the immigrants that scrap and risk their lives just to get to a better situation. But my presence in the States skewed the statistics of the Black economy. Black immigrants in the States are typically more well off than their Black American counterparts because they were already well off.
Proportionally speaking, Black immigrants are doing better than regular Black folks in this country, or at least that's what it's easy to perceive, right? Like when I think about Black struggle, I don't think about Jamaicans, Caribbeans, Nigerians, West Africans, etc. Even though I'm sure there is struggle, it don't feel like it looks like what we're going through. One of the core factors of maintaining white supremacy in America for Black people trapped here with our colonizers is we have no clue of anything about ourselves pre-slavery. And so we've had to cobble together a pigeon culture, you know what I'm saying? A culture built out of the residual remnants that we can innately feel from the diaspora, the experiences we had during slavery, and just whatever Americana stuff that we can attach ourselves to. And so we put that together and we get, gumbo. If we assume that there are more moneyed Black immigrants in this country than just regular Black folks, then we can also assume that Black bourgeoisie and Black capitalists are also going to be more numerous among Black immigrant populations, which then legit puts Black immigrant communities in a position to do harm to Black people in a way that is often unchecked and unaddressed. That this whole fight about Jay-Z, right? Jacquiana is another example. This whole fight about Jay-Z that people miss is not necessarily a fight against Black people making money and doing well for themselves and building economic power, right? It's about Black capitalism, which means I am making money through the purposeful exploitation of the fact that I already have capital. Now, I don't think that's what ADOS niggas are talking. I don't think that's their critical analysis of the situation, right? I don't think because that's a leftist analysis of a problem. So that class privilege then becomes imbued with cultural relevancy. So it's now I know that if I give my child African names, they may not assume they're Black. They'll say, oh, they're African. So they might get a different accent. They might get a different response, which again is an issue of white supremacy and not Black immigrants. We can't lose track that they did not create their own privilege. That privilege was given to them by white supremacy. And if we want to address the problem, we need to focus on addressing white supremacy, not making memes about African women in Halle Berry.
And that's the tangible pain that I must genuflect to. Because my 10 years in the States was rough enough. But does that mean that I concede to the proposal of ADOS and FBA.
What happens after that? Once the resources are hoarded and they're given to whoever y'all have deemed deserve them the most, do we not wind up in the exact position that we are in right now, where a power decides who is most deserving of something and who needs to suffer for things that are completely out of their control?
Black American supremacy is not the end goal. Nor is black supremacy. No amount of black billionaires anywhere will save us, will liberate us from oppression. The quicker we end the black diaspora wars, the quicker we could assemble and organize. Then we can begin to coalesce with class. Marginalized minorities like Latinos and Asians, Native Americans. Moreover, the impoverished white folks, y'all are our allies as well. The common enemy here has been and always will be white supremacy, capitalism, and patriarchy. And if that ain't apparent to you yet, then tap on that to watch the rest of this intersectionality series. I can see you there. You are now watching The Nebula Cut.